everybody. Good morning. I am so happy to be here, and it's good to see all of you here today, too. And I've got some special friends here today. Diane and Eva and Mort's daughter, Robin, is here, so you're welcome. You know, here at Suncoast Center for Spiritual Living, we know that there are many paths to God, and we honor all paths to God. So wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. And that feels good. That feels good to me. You know, for Christmas, I gave some of my grandchildren riddle books, and some of those riddles were pretty silly, I have to tell you, but they thought they were great. And I heard a riddle the other day that said, why are there so many paths to God? And the answer was, because it's the only place there is to go. And I believe that. I really believe that. So when I say God, I'm talking about the presence of the One. So if you're more comfortable with higher power or spirit or universe or source, just substitute what word works for you. If you are new here at Suncoast, I will tell you that we are in a period of transition. Our founding minister, Reverend Allen, has moved to Colorado to be near his newly born nephew and to renew himself. And when I first heard that Reverend Allen was leaving, I felt like the rug had been pulled out from under me. Anybody else feel that way? I know a lot of us did. And so for a few days, I felt sad and kind of insecure, like, my goodness, what's going to happen now? And I was even a little bit angry about it. But then I pulled back and remembered my firm belief that nothing happens in God's world by mistake. And also my belief that the universe is for me, never against me. And so since this move was good for Reverend Allen, it had to be good for me. And it had to be good for all of us here at Suncoast, because that's how the universe works. But I had been comfortable here. I knew who did what, when. I knew we'd have a good talk on Sunday morning, and I was really happy. And I don't particularly like change. I know I'm not alone in that. But one of the things Reverend Allen taught us is that all change is for the better. Now, when he talked about that, I tell you, I wrestled with that idea. I questioned that idea, and I had things going through my mind. Well, what about that time? Well, what about that time? And I'm a lot closer to believing that today than I was then, but I'm a firm believer in questioning what you hear. If it doesn't resonate with you, it's okay to question it. It's okay to wonder about it. It's okay to wrestle with it. And I have found in my own life that it's by wrestling with these ideas, by maybe writing them down and pinning them on the kitchen wall, that I have become more firm in what I do believe. I'm sure about what I do believe, and I'm able to use those beliefs in my life. So on a deep level, I knew that this was a good thing. And so my focus began to be to make the choice to spend time in that place of the deep inner knowing that I had, that the universe is for me, that this is good, to spend time feeling that this is good and thinking about this being good, and to honor the feelings that came up for me and know that they were not right or wrong, good or bad, but my deep inner knowing was that this is a good thing. So what a change like this does for us, as I thought back on it, it gives us an opportunity to use in our own lives the principles that we have learned here. Or if we're struggling, to learn new spiritual principles that we can use in our life. And we always want to use principles that support our forward growth. That's what we're here for. So the other day, a lighthearted thought came across my computer. It's one of those thought for the day things that we all get. And I loved it, and I prepared a slide for you about it. which says every thought is a seed. And let's stop there. Every thought is a seed. And that's what's key to notice here. If you plant crab apples, don't count on harvesting golden delicious. So when I spot myself planting crab apples, having those thoughts that are not going to be productive, not going to have a good outcome, I go back to what we learn here, and you all know it. Change your thinking, change your life. We have an opportunity to do that. So I'd like to tell you a story now. The time is 1957, and it was in Thailand. And there was a remote village in Thailand that had a huge statue of a clay Buddha. And it was the prized possession in this village. It was huge, and the villagers came and worshiped at the Buddha's feet every day. There was a monastery of monks nearby, and they were the caretakers for this shrine. And they worshiped there several times a day. And it was just, they were so proud of this clay Buddha. And they heard that a new road was going to be built through their town, and they were excited because it was going to bring prosperity to the area. Until they heard that the road was going right through the path where the clay Buddha sat. So they gathered all the best minds together, both the monks and the townspeople, and they thought, and they planned, and they planned. For weeks they planned. And they built enormous bamboo scaffolding over this clay Buddha, and they tied it on with twine, with vines from the jungle. They were careful, 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 and they made plans to move their clay Buddha. And they, on the moving day, they slipped rollers underneath this Buddha, and they began to move it inch by inch by inch to its new home. And they hadn't gone very far when they heard a loud crack, and the clay Buddha had cracked. And the monks were so upset. They were so dismayed about this. And just then it started to pour down rain. Worst case scenario. So they quickly covered their clay Buddha with tarps. They weighted the tarps down with stones and bamboo. And since it was getting dark, they walked slowly back to the monastery. They had failed in their carefully laid plans. So I invite you to think back to a time in your life when your carefully laid plans may not have worked out, and something that felt disastrous may have occurred. Have you ever made extensive plans at work, maybe months planning a project, or a remodeling project at home, and you had a binder full of clippings, you knew just what your new home was going to look like? Or maybe you planned a vacation and you knew every stop and just what you were going to do at every stop, right, Kevin? Kevin's a planner like that. But just when you had everything planned, life threw you a curveball. Maybe you lost your job. That happens. Maybe you had relationship issues and it looked like you were heading toward a divorce. Maybe you got a diagnosis you weren't expecting. Or maybe the stock market took a big dip. Just when you thought you had everything under control, it changed. I know I've had many times like that in my life, and I think we all have. I think we can relate to that. But we've learned here that pain happens in our lives. Pain happens, but suffering is optional, because we have a choice about the thoughts we think. And it's so important that we remember this, and when our thoughts get off track and we veer into the negative, it's a perfect opportunity to notice it and get back to the positive. So we have another slide. This is a quotation from Dr. Ernest Holmes, who's the founder of Science of Mind. We cannot live a choiceless life. Every day, every moment, every second, there is a choice. We have the right to choose what we wish to experience. And that's from the Science of Mind textbook, page 143. We get to choose a new thought when our thoughts are not where we want them to be. And the philosophy that we teach here at Suncoast is called, guess what? New thought. And it started in the late 19th century in the United States with a focus on individual unification with a higher power, or perhaps more accurately, an inner power. The unification is not something that we strive for and work to get. It's something we strive for and work to recognize, because it is already present in our lives. We are already one with God and one with each other. And no matter how much we've messed up our lives, we are still one with God. That doesn't change. Our daily work is to remember that oneness and to use it every day in our lives. We have that built-in longing for wholeness, for oneness, which can only be met by realizing that we are already one with Source. We are lacking absolutely nothing. We thirst for God, for that sense of belonging and completeness and grace that reveals the unity of life, when in fact we are already an expression of that unity. In our teaching, we're careful to remember that we're not one with that presence up in the sky that frowns a lot, that God that was up there that some of us grew up with. We are surrendering to the light within us. We are surrendering to our own divine wisdom, to that presence within. To eliminate that feeling of being separate from, and some people call it separation thinking, we have to plug in and stay plugged in. What if we compare our spiritual power to electrical power? When we're plugged in, the lights come on, all the appliances work, life is good. In fact, life is wonderful. When we unplug, the hair dryer doesn't work, the coffee pot doesn't work, the microwave doesn't work, the lights don't come on, and it can be very, very dark. The electricity or the spiritual power doesn't change. Only our awareness of it. It is always the same. Our awareness sometimes changes. We need to make the choice, and we have this choice, to plug in and stay plugged in. You could be in a place in your life where you feel like a cracked Buddha. And when we spot cracks in our lives, we don't pray or do spiritual mind treatment to cover up those cracks, because that's the time when God is in conversation with us. Life is a movement toward greater and greater wholeness. And God's will for us is to be whole, is to be who we really are, and to let our true colors shine through, to let that bright light that we are be radiant. We're each created with our own beauty. And we are here to shine our special and unique light in this world. That's why we are here. But let me step back. The Buddhist monks had faced failure. Their carefully laid plans had failed. They were full of shame. They were frustrated, and the rain continued. The head monk couldn't sleep that night, and as he lay awake toward morning, he heard the rain begin to slack off. So he got his flashlight, he got up, and walked down the path to the clay Buddha to see what the damage had been. He pulled back all the tarps that were covering it, and he shined his light on the clay Buddha, and it was just kind of the dull clay except in one spot, and he saw a slight glimmer shining back at him, and he didn't know what that was. So he went back to the monastery to get the other monks. Now, when I see a crack in my life, I think something has gone wrong. But it's in that crack that my prayer is being answered. The crack is not wrong. The crack is not bad. There's nothing to fix and there's nothing to fix here at Suncoast for us because we are not broken. We are not broken. At Suncoast, we're in community to support our spiritual growth, our personal healing. We're in community to have a good time. And we're in community to remember to stop planting those seeds of crab apples. There was a time about 6 years ago when my life had cracks in it, and they were physical cracks. I had had chronic diverticulitis for years. I've been very, very sick. I lost a lot of weight, 30 or 35 pounds. I had surgery. I spent a week in the hospital, nothing by mouth, and I finally got home, and I was very debilitated. And one of my practitioner sisters that I had been in training with many years ago was one of my caretakers. And she worked with me on what I want for the future. And I wanted to not feel bad anymore, and I wanted to be able to eat again sometime, and I didn't want to be in pain. I had a lot of negatives going on. But as we worked together, I began to visualize what I really wanted, and what I visualized was me walking down Bayshore Boulevard. I was swinging my arms. I had on cute shorts, and I felt great. And I was saying, I am healthy, I am fit, I am vital. I am healthy, I am fit, I am vital. So as I laid in bed, that was the picture in my mind. Me out walking on Bayshore, feeling great, repeating, I am healthy, I am fit, I am vital. And one day the surgeon told me that I could do anything I felt like doing. So the next morning, I put on my tennis shoes, went downstairs. I live in a high-rise, so went downstairs, walked through the driveway out to the start of the sidewalk on Bayshore, and I was exhausted. I was exhausted. And I had to stand there for a minute and rest, and I turned around and I went back in and went upstairs and I went back to bed. The next day came, got up, put my tennis shoes on, went downstairs, walked through the driveway up to the sidewalk, and I thought, I was tired then, but I thought, I'm walking 10 feet further today than I did yesterday. And I walked 10 feet down and 10 feet back, and then I was exhausted, and I went up and I lay back down. So every day I did that. Every day I went out, and my goal was to walk 10 feet further than I had walked the day before. And in 6 or 7 weeks, I was walking 3 miles down Bayshore. I had a bounce in my step, and I was swinging my arms, and I was healthy, fit, and vital. Whatever change we want in our lives, we have to do the work in our mind first. We have to get that clear picture. It doesn't work just to say, I don't want this, I don't want this. We have to go and visualize what we do want, what it feels like, how good it feels. What's it going to take to get there? And then we need to take action. We need to take whatever action it is that we need to do to get where we want to go. And we can change whatever we want doing it that way. That's using the power of our thought. And it struck me that, you know, we have that song, Suncoast Strong, that we sing here sometimes, and I love the song. It's so upbeat, that we might have a mantra similar to that for Suncoast. We are strong, we are fit, we are vital. Suncoast is strong, Suncoast is fit, Suncoast is vital. I mean, I think it has a nice ring to it. But let's go back to that mysterious clay Buddha. The head monk walked back to the monastery, and he woke the other monks up. And as a community, they went back, they gathered all their tools, their hammers, their chisels, everything they thought they might need. And they started chipping away at this clay Buddha in the area where they had seen the glimmer. And after a day of hard labor in the jungle, it was steamy because it had rained so much, they stepped back, and before them was a solid gold Buddha. Solid gold. Historians believe that hundreds of years ago, the Burmese army was preparing to invade Siam. And the monks knew that the country was going to be invaded, and they didn't want their prized golden statue to be looted and carried away. So they covered it with a thick layer of clay. And the monks were all killed in that attack. Centuries passed until that fateful day in 1957 when the secret was uncovered. This is such a metaphor for our lives. We are born pure and we shine with light. As time moves on, our golden nature begins to tarnish. We have unspoken shame, our childhoods, our parents, our teachers, things that occurred to us. Life happens. And we forget that we are pure gold. That's who we are. We forget that we always have the power of choice in our thinking. We forget that. And our divine presence within is covered up. But there is a golden divinity within you, within me. And like God wants to tell you of the wholeness and perfection that you are. The cracks in your life allow light from the outside to shine in, uniting with that light within you, allowing it to shine into the world and become brighter and brighter. Jesus said, "You are the light of the world." Our job is to be the light of the world and to let that light shine brightly. You are whole, perfect, and you are always enough. This is the truth in my life, and I know it's the truth in yours. Namaste.